All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us as we explore our series, Meetings with Remarkable People. My name is Briya Freeman, and I'm excited to explore with you a conversation with some leading edge thinkers in the field of unified physics and sacred geometry, exploring the intersection with modern mysticism, shamanism, and the emerging consciousness of our times. I'll start by introducing our panelists, who are each masters in their fields. Marshall Lefferts is the founder and director of the Cosmometry Project and author of Cosmometry, Exploring the Hollow Fractal Nature of the Cosmos, a groundbreaking book released this July 2019. He's also a board member and adjunct faculty with the Resonance Science Foundation in collaboration with Nassim Haramein. Marshall also worked as associate producer for Thrive, What on Earth Will It Take?, which is the most widely viewed privately funded documentary in the world, available in over 20 languages, and arguably one of the most pivotal consciousness documentaries of our times. Marshall is a lifelong student of nature, cosmic knowledge, as well as a skilled musician. For the past 41 years, he has studied and synthesized a variety of pioneering research, including the work of Buckminster Fuller, David Bohm, Nassim Haramein, Foster Gamble, Richard Merrick, and others, culminating in his book, Cosmometry, which we're pleased to be discussing tonight. Welcome to the call, Marshall.
Thank you so much, Briya. Thank you, everybody. I'm just so honored to be here with you all, so appreciative of your great interest in these subjects, and can tell by my little bit of looking around at who you are and what you're doing, and getting a sense of that it's a very rich and deep inquiry you all are involved with. And it's just a pleasure to be here and be in that inquiry with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also introduce Berdhanya Swami Tierra to our call. Berdhanya is a spiritual teacher, author, and mystic. Her teachings focus on the transformation of consciousness, a spiritual awakening which she sees as the next step in human evolution. For the past 30 years, Berdhanya has been dedicated to the empowerment of the feminine force through an exploration of forgotten sciences such as art, meditation, ayurveda, and ceremony. Berdhanya's work allows for communities around the world to engage with Earth's vibrations and supports equality and justice for the re-emerging Earth dimensions and different intraterrestrial races. Welcome, Berdhanya.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for putting together this opportunity for all of us to interact and to learn from each other and to have fun.
Finally, I will introduce Matthew Cosgrove. Matthew is an oracle, a mystic, and a seer. His role is to represent and protect the heart of Earth, a representation which fills his own heart with a crystal compassion that's deeply transformative to anyone he works with. As a master of the underworld, Matthew also offers openings, journeys, and vision work to help people recognize and transform in their present cycle of evolution. Matthew and Berdhanya regularly work together, facilitating retreats, courses, and profound ceremonies across Canada, online, and internationally. Both teachers are dedicated to animating a living mysticism which allows different races, in form and in non-form, to interact in a dynamic exchange of information. Welcome, Matthew.
Wow, thanks. It sounds really good, what I do.
You do that.
I'm really excited about this because, well, we'll get into it later, but I've been seeing all these, well, like in the book, the cosmometry, different symbols over the years have appeared in conjunction with where people are at, you know. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, there's some amazing intersections to explore. Yeah. Really, really rich. Yeah, thank you. I'm pleased to say that we're also joined by our Cosmometry Study Group, a dedicated group of seekers from across Canada and the United States. Our study group has been led by the trailblazing efforts of Octave Lefferts, who is specialized in facilitating courses in modern sciences. Thank you for being with us, Octave.
Thanks, Briya. Thanks for hosting this, and trailblazing. My goodness, what praise! We have the real trailblazer here in our meeting. But yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Everybody plays their part. So we have a beautiful group we have here. So we'll start the conversation. Marshall, we'd like to start with you. We found your cosmometry book this summer, and it's been found to be one of the most comprehensive, accessible, profound, and inspiring book that provides like what's the leading edge ideas of what's being now understood in the field of geometry and unified physics. So you did amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about how the inspiration for the name of this book came to you, and why it's so important for the modern seeker to really understand these fundamental principles in physics, energy, and in the cosmos?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, the name cosmometry is one that, well, really, my background, as you mentioned, has deep roots in the work of Buckminster Fuller. Bucky's synergetic geometry really grounded me in an approach to this field, starting from 1978 when I first read his works and began studying his work. And then over the years, many years, I became familiar with what is typically called sacred geometry. And that's a whole field of knowledge and awareness that's very, very popular today and has been for a long time. And then I also have been immersed in the scientific side of it, and especially working with Nassim Haramein. And I felt inside of myself that there was a bit of a need for a term, a name for this field that would appeal to scientists as well as to the spiritual and mystical side. And sacred geometry is not something scientists are going to say what they're doing, for sure. And so I also then, in musing upon that, was considering how the word geometry is very much, geo means earth. It's very much a system that's based on our experience here on earth. And what Bucky was discovering in Nassim and my work with Foster Gamble, who created Thrive, it really is showing that these patterns span the full expanse of the cosmos, from the tiniest scale to the largest scale. And so it was a cosmic geometry. And I thought of this word cosmometry, which I thought I had made up one night. This is back in around like 2006 or 7. And upon doing a search on it, I found out that it actually has existed for a few hundred years, but hasn't been in use really. And so for me, it is the appropriate name for this field of knowledge from a more broad context that includes Buckminster Fuller's work and the scientific understanding, as well as what we typically find in sacred geometry. So that's how the name came about for me. And so I really just offer it as a word we can use, a name we can use to have a conversation that really can include all parties in a comfortable way. In terms of the importance of this field of knowledge in the world today, for me, I feel that, well, essentially, the human evolutionary path, I think, as we're all very, very much aware of, is really at a threshold of make it or break it. And the challenges and crises we face, the ones that are very much human oriented, come from a worldview, and very much a scientific worldview, that has oriented us towards the idea of separation and domination and control over nature, superiority, and really a lack of a sensitivity to not only a greater sense of the world and of nature, but even of ourselves in relationship to that. And that, for me, is at the root of the challenge and the crisis. It's really a crisis of our minds and our consciousness, and also then an understanding scientifically that is, let's say, maybe more deep and true to the nature of reality than the materialistic and reductionist model, and that has been predominant. And so the field of knowledge of cosmometry and of the unified physics, the scientific worldview that is represented from that understanding, offers us a new perspective, and really fundamentally a new paradigm, because it shifts from the paradigm of separation and disconnection to one of unification and completely connected at all scales and in all ways. So it really offers us a basis of understanding that is essential in my mind to being able to make this shift that we're in, and gives us a compass of orientation towards which to do so that is coherent and in alignment with what I feel, and I think the science shows us, and also understanding Bucky's geometry, and all the aspects as they come together in a wholeness. It shows us how we can come back into alignment with the cosmos, and because we're obviously very out of alignment and imbalance now, but we can come back into alignment and harmony with nature and the cosmos by understanding and applying these ideas in our technologies, in our social structures, etc. So for me, it's essential that we do so, and this offers some insights into a way that we can approach that.
That's beautiful. It really opens it up beyond just like, there's the implications for the seeker, and then there's the implications for anybody who's interested in
Absolutely.
the evolution of Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody. Implications for everybody, really.
Everybody. Yeah.
It's a fundamental shift that, you know, the shift will affect everyone, no matter how it is going to go. And so we get to choose how that happens, each of us, and then together. Ideally, we make these choices that are going to bring us in the best and highest and most compassionate and beautiful outcome. And so that ultimately it does affect everyone, either way.
It's a very worthwhile objective for all of us, I think.
Absolutely.
Avtak, can you, so when we created the study group to study your work, Avtak was in charge of facilitating that for us. And so I'd like to invite him to talk a little bit about the intersection of what we're studying and what we found in your work.
Great.
Okay. So our community, the members of the study group, you know, we've been sort of swimming for the past 3 years and a bit in teachings by our teacher, Berdhanya, who's in this session as well, about subject matter called the structure of being and the structure of belonging. And, you know, the structure of being was really a very personal set of teachings and practices, you know, to help, you know, raise human consciousness as much as it could, but which is great, but we've really moved into what we're calling the structure of belonging now, which is really moved us into the impersonal realm. So, you know, raising consciousness, synchronizing consciousness with the group, the planet, you know, the environment, and it's been really good. It links quite well with your book. So just like a quick little background, my day job, I'm a computer engineer. So I've always thought in, you know, mathematical ways, right? And there's, throughout the teachings of our teacher, there's been always a few key paragraphs and sentences here and that I'm like, man, that really sounds like sacred geometry, you know. And yeah, I'm gonna like pick one, just a really quick one, just to give you an example. So this is a quick little clip from a document, and it goes, you know, essence is like a tongue, and it looks like a pyramid. It is up and in at the same time. It is the center, the point that the structure of the source is based on, and from where it is balanced. All other structures are based on this. When I heard that, I'm like, is she talking about a tetrahedron? Is that what she's talking about? So, yeah, I mean, we've got documentation and there's endless correlations that can be drawn, but I want to give you that one. That really, I think that one really screams.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess I could say that, you know, these teachings for the past 3 years sync up super well with like the big three sacred geometry. So the tetrahedron, the, you know, the vector equilibrium and the IVM, and, you know, their resulting dynamics, right? And the torus and all of its features and all of its behaviors, they mimic quite wonderfully the teachings we've been exploring for the past 3 years. So it's deep and it's vast, and, you know, obviously, like, I can't cover any degree of detail in these 2 sentences that I have, but it's there, man, and it's awesome.
Thank you. That's it's so exciting to hear that, and it's so affirming for me to get the reflection back from the perspective that you all are immersed in, and the correlations being true and universal. And that's what I get from what I hear, you know, that we're really all tapping into the same field of conscious awareness. And so whichever way we are, you know, whichever lens we're looking at it through, or path we're exploring it, or language we're using, it's all, we're all looking at the same thing, because there's really only one thing going on here.
Yeah, one thing.
Love to hear that reflection. Yeah.
Berdhanya, would you like to expand on that a little bit, the correlation between the cosmometry work and your teachings?
We need to see that each individual is positioned in a space in different points. So therefore, each individual has particular resources, particular point of view that aid the theme of development that that particular individual have chosen. So by us uniting the different perspective, this person see it from this perspective, the other one from another perspective, for the time frame that we are looking at the same thing, we are energizing a field or a dimension, and we enter in that dimension, and by entering into that dimension, we are locating ourselves in a earth that is parallel to what we, all the observers, wish to live. What is that we are directing the one thing through us embodying that, we are actually animating a dimension that is unique to the viewers. So the more individuals or souls or parts of us, whatever you want to have it, look at one thing at this moment, which is the understanding of a reality that is in great dynamic. We are contributing to an evolution, but it's a different evolution that we think, because it's not that we are changing the earth. It's actually we are abandoning the earth that we did conceive it, and we are entering into a new dimension where the earth actually exists, formed by the different people that are looking at one single same thing, but with different perspective. So it is like a sphere that is being looked at different points, and when the sphere is totally covered, then it gets animated because it has a purpose. because it has a heartbeat. So the science expressed to us the understanding of reality, where another point is to infuse that understanding with the actual energy of us living that and being that. So it's not enough to understand it. It's necessary to embody it by creating that connectability. So meetings like this immediately create a synergy that is saying a statement that we're looking at the thing, we're getting it together, looking at one thing, and that we're animating it right now. So it is something that is not, first of all, is not enough to understand it. We need to tap into the fact that we are creators and that we are creating something just by observing. From our point of view, so you don't need to get all the, I don't want to be a physic, but you need to be you in order to download you into that field that we are creating right now. Therefore, the earth that we wish to be or lived can be animated. Otherwise, it's like a relationship, that everybody say, oh, we need to change earth. And I say, well, no, really, you cannot change anybody. You cannot change a person. You cannot change the earth. You cannot change anything. All what you can do is to change the dimension that you choose to live as a parallel reality and embody that and gather all the souls that vibrate with that particular preference. So when that's why we get this meeting together and say, okay, how cosmetry see it, how biology see it, how music see it. And that's what is the whole program of Meeting with Remarkable People, where we are all seeing the same thing, but we are actually energizing a dimension that we are all choosing to prefer to live on it. This makes sense?
Yes, beautifully said. I love that. It makes me just feel so good to take that in and reflect that I fully feel that in myself, that the scientific and intellectual aspect gives us a window into this one thing, and that's very important and very valuable, especially because our wonderful minds, with all their great capacity, can also be very confused when they don't understand the experience of our spiritual being. Like we have that more intuitive, direct knowing side of it ourselves, and yet we haven't had a model that's been congruent with that from a scientific and logical and intellectual, rational perspective. And so having that enables us to integrate that part of ourselves in with the aspects that are whole and in that embodied sense and intuitive knowing. And so I feel like that's part of the reintegration process, which for me speaks to this this aspect, as you're saying, of really it's about each of us coming into our embodiment and coming into coherence and integration in our whole beings, and then in seeing that same thing, like you said, to come together and from each of our lenses and each of our perspectives into this beautiful hologram that is our shared experience here, to be able to affirm that together, and in so doing incarnate the, the new world, the new earth, as we share that understanding into this reality. And it's a process. It's actually, it's a necessary process of visionary and practical understanding coming together. And I really feel what you're saying is exactly what is going on and what's needed. And how that permeates into the collective field of human consciousness, well, it starts right here by being together in this way and having these conversations and being able to share them as you all are. And being able to bring greater and greater clarity to what is that shared perspective of this one unified understanding, and then celebrate the diversity of the perspectives, like you said, through the music and the arts and the science and the consciousness modalities that we can use to help us embody it more fully. But really, the embodiment is the key. I agree with you.
Yeah, and with the understanding that as we become what we see, and that the only change that we are able to really do is to not only observe what is observed, it becomes us. Mm-hmm. And with that, then the embodiment happens when you call different lights or matching frequencies, that will say, mm-hmm. that agree for the time being. It could be just a couple of moments to animate a field that is clear, that we want to become one in a very in the exchange. But it's not the exchange of, it's actually related to resonance. It's the exchange of our voice. Mm. It's the exchange of our vibration that we have created at this moment, a cloud, if I can put it that way, mm-hmm. where we are magnetizing a field of diversity, where nobody is fighting with anybody, and that the agreement is taken for granted. Mm. That we don't need to discuss what you think and what I think. Is about what we need as what is your contribution to the dimension that we want to inhabit. And in that simplicity, then we become. And we need to separate a little bit of the concreteness, because it's not, again, it's not about changing the world. It's not about changing mm-hmm. Earth. You know, Earth is fine. Mm-hmm. And what we are not is enough agile to move at the speed that she's moving.
Yes. Yeah, I really feel it's a change from within. And the human experience is one aspect of the totality of the experience of this earth. And I love your mentioning of the relationship of all beings, intraterrestrial beings that are in form and not in form, and we are one of those, and we have our particular perspective, and we are highly impacting the experience of this earth. And I fully agree that it's not about saving the earth or changing the earth. It's an inner orientation and making a shift towards really that which ultimately we can all agree upon, which transcends our individual identities, and is a transpersonal sense of self and awareness that is, you know, it's, I like to refer to it as normalizing cosmic consciousness. I feel like that is what is inherent in this shift, is the collective experience of seeing the same thing, not just the same thing on TV or in the news or in the world, the human world, but really our sense of our cosmic origin, which is not some far out abstract thing. It's actually, you know, our true nature. And it's simple, like you said. And so when we can see that simplicity and come to a shared sense of that knowing, then we can choose and make the shifts in ourselves and with each other and in this world that will allow the evolution to be, well, I don't know if the best word is successful. Either way, it will succeed. And yet,
Dynamic.
from our experience,
Dynamic, just dynamic, to make
yeah,
the
yeah, right,
dynamic,
yeah,
alive, understood, to
yeah,
participate fully with what we have, what we're built for, and to put our perspective in an expression that is concrete and that make us excited about our life and the life we want to live, and where we want to be directed, and that see that the power of our own creator within is constructing earth or not earth. It doesn't matter where we are.
yeah,
Is how we inhabit the space that we're given, and that attract naturally matching frequencies, that it will be spinning through the emptiness and in a playful way, so we can continue learning.
I love that, in a playful way. I always feel that is the essence. Really, it's the essence. The what I call the joy body is the essence of who we are, and that joy and love are the dual expression of the same fundamental dynamic, and the balance of the two coming together is where we come into our wholeness. And so it's very important to be in the playful relationship with this and not be too attached and too serious to either the process or the outcome.
Matthew, could I invite you and to speak a little bit about your work as a seer and how this cosmic geometry has appeared to you, or what your angle is on it?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been following the conversation here. It's very interesting about, like in my book, The Artisans of the New Earth. The new Earth is already existing, and it's in a different frequency. It's like a parallel world that we already live in most of the time. Much of our work, Berdhanya and me, is to get people to is to teach people that they have the freedom to go there themselves. I've been doing this work like 35 years, and I use the I don't know, it's a tool I call the archetypal mind. It has absolutely nothing to do with psychology. It's a higher mind. It comes out of the void, out of the darkness, what I've called the black light. And I've since discovered, a shaman, I've always called it the black light. It comes from the emptiness. It comes from the hollowness that is all around us. Like, we're mostly just empty space, which is charged with tremendous power. And the black light and the archetypal mind comes directly from there. So when I go into the presence, which I call it, which is the first tool I call, is the presence. It's to make yourself still, and to tune into the vibration. It happens through the heart. It doesn't happen through the head. It happens through the heart. And our work has been to bring people to the heart in order to be able to access that themselves and raise their frequency, because it doesn't happen through the head. For example, earlier on, we worked with the Star of David, which is two parts. It's got the upper triangle and the lower triangle. The upper triangle, which is where it's people that are sky. They tend to be very much in the head, and the lower people have lost touch with the magic of sky. They're more into the density. It's people in the south. The north is more the sky people. Anyway, so our work earlier on is the Star of David, is to connect the sky with the earth. And so these shapes would just appear. This would just appear where I'd see the Star of David, but they weren't joined, you know. Or I'd see the person. I called it the horizontal man, or even inverted man, where their head is like down. It's a metaphor, but it's not. It's an actual position. Same as the alignment of the heart. It's a metaphor, but it's not. It's an actual. That's our like. It's the biggest magnetic field in our body. That's what connects us to the source. And so as we worked with the Star of David, and people would start to shed their limiting belief systems, the Star of David would unite. And then the heart would appear in the center. And when that happened, it was another shape suddenly appeared out of the darkness. It was a sphere. It was a sphere of. It's like the person becomes a unit, somehow connected with the source, and then that evolved to what we call the body of belonging, which is a sphere, but it's faceted. I don't know. There's probably a name for it. I don't know, and it's composed of all these very steep pyramids inside it. And these shapes just appear alongside the person's development. You see, it's a total parallel. Because I have no training in science or mathematics. I have no clue what I'm seeing initially, but then it all starts to make sense. But the body of belonging, or this sphere, something unique to it. I've always remarked it exists in a place that doesn't exist. Like it's everywhere. It's everywhere, so it's nowhere. It's like that hologram, you know, that it's here, but it's everywhere all at once. Yeah. So it exists, but it's in a place that doesn't exist. It's totally outside of time and space. You know, just like the parallel Earth is, just like past and future, it's all existing right here, right now. Yeah, and there's been other geometries and images have come. The cross, such an ancient symbol. You know, just the basic cross, and the alignment of the two. Again, that it lines up with the heart. When the cross is too low, or it's too high, the person's too much in the head, or too much stuck in the lower areas, and it doesn't meet in the heart. Anyway, these are just a few of the images that have come over the years.
Do you see parallels with your work, Marshall? Oh, go ahead, Berdhanya.
Yeah, I just want to underline with Matthew's comments about that the geometry is very much formed out of the perception of the individual, the position that it takes in the observation of itself. So it through our years of work and in the community is to build your structure by changing the perception that you have about yourself. And you have experienced that as you get more geometrically sophisticated, you are able to handle higher levels of impact of energy in different dimensions. So the work as we become in our structure, the sacred geometry or the complexity of the source, we are able to travel much more in cohesiveness to time and not time, space and not space, to travel through the form and the non-form, because it is a matter of if you don't have the structure, you cannot travel. And the density very much relate to the belief system, to the limiting belief systems that we adopt, and that each belief system is addressing the three powers of wisdom, love, and alchemy. And as you deform that, then the sacred geometry cannot happen, because it's by the union of these three units that the interaction of this unity that the sacred geometry appears or disappears. So we should not say that sacred geometry, oh, the form is there and is forever there. No, it's a living thing that is us, and that we have complete power of creating it, moving it in the dimension we want, depending of the belief system we choose to live, or the one that we are preferring to express. So it's very much in congruence. That is not something, okay, that's how reality works out there, is that reality is me, and I have a complete control over my structure. And that, depending on where my structure is or what is the shape of my structure, I will be located in a dimension, in a scale, a small scale, bigger scale, medium scale. And the bigger the scale, you're able to process the different non-time, the non-space, all the multiple types of gravities, the multiple types of plasmic influx, everything. It gets much more potent, and you are able to manage it. Otherwise, it's just the source is too powerful. It sheds you around. So what the source wants is that you mimic the source, that you mimic itself at all times. So it puts you in this shape-shifting geometrical thing that eventually you will become it. And when you're it, you are just a shape-shifting, dynamic, flowing, playful, joyful, loving molecule, or little thing in the great ocean of the now. So it's very much related to perspective.
Marshall, would you like to comment on that?
I
How do you see the parallels with your own work?
That's so rich and deep, all that's been said. And Matthew, thank you for sharing some of those visions you have and your sense of them. And in reflecting on some of those aspects, you know, in the model of that I have in cosmometry, really, you can say that everything that we have as an experience, our experiential relationship, whether it's physical or metaphysical, is ultimately one of relationships. In order to have an experience, we have to have a sense of self and something else. And relationships are all geometric, really. You know, it's a dynamic occurring that is constantly shifting and shape-shifting, as Berdhanya just said, and comes into form in different ways of different aspects of coherence, you know, in different scales and different geometries. And the most fundamental aspect of that is the triangle, and in spatial relationships, the tetrahedron. And so that's the super most simple place of the origin of what then complexifies into greater expressions of form and existence and perception. And then the sort of the balancing geometric relationship to that simplicity is when that complexifies, it's funny I say that both times, complexifies as in its other aspect of coherent wholeness as a sphere. And now the beauty of what you were seeing there, Matthew, with the sphere, that it's actually faceted, you said. And this is one of the great discoveries of Buckminster Fuller, is that what he then invented as a geodesic dome, which is really that all spherical systems are faceted systems. You know, even the most perfect, beautiful, smooth, seemingly, you know, perfectly polished crystal sphere is actually made of a crystalline system that is all triangulated and has triangulated relationships all throughout it. And the protons that make up everything in the universe, the proton is at the nucleus of all the atoms. And in the unified physics model, they're made up of, they're basically just swirling vortices of the field of space, which is at the smaller scale, the Planck scale, is organized in the exact kind of arrangement, Matthew, that you were envisioning there with that triangulated Star of David and tetrahedral geometry. So that's like seeing the most fundamental balance as at the source, which then comes into that dynamic, that the organizing expression of something being localized. And the protons are really a swirling of that Planck field into a higher level complexity organization in a spherical system that is completely unified throughout the entire cosmos. And so every proton, as Nassim has been showing in his physics, is connected to every other proton, all the relationships. And this is where the understanding that there are local expressions within a non-local field, and all those local expressions are actually intimately connected in the non-local field. And so, as Matthew was saying, there is both like that archetype of consciousness. I don't know if that's exactly the term you used, but that archetypal mind is that universal non-local mind that is the source of any local expression. And that is the same thing happening in the physical universe, where the protons are doing the same thing, and in the non-physical universe of our minds and feelings, our hearts, where we are really coming to understand that we are not limited in this human experience. We can get distracted by it and get a feeling like, oh, that's sort of who we are and the limits of our sense of self. And yet, when we realize we're made physically of these entities that are completely coherently interconnected, entangled across the entire universal structure with a holographic information flow moving through the entire thing. And that is at the foundation of our physical beings. And as Berdhanya, you were saying, that complexity increases to where we enter a new dimension of perception that is intimately related to our biological system as a human being, which is then completely informed by that underlying field that is universally entangled. And so now we have not only a metaphysical and mystical perception of that unification, but a physical realization that it's exactly the same thing. And really, ultimately, how could it be otherwise? And the beauty of understanding the nature of protons, when I understood this for the first time, I was like, wow, that is right there something we should all really pay attention to, is that protons don't decay as atoms and molecules will do. They'll transform and decay, but protons are not known to decay. And that is the origin of all matter in the universe. Therefore, it means that the very foundation of the universe, the earth, ourselves, is eternal abundance. And that in itself is so important to really take in fully. And as we struggle with on this planet with some of the challenges of the perceived limitations, when we actually start to orient from that perspective and inform ourselves, towards what we can make real, to realize, to bring into this world from that perspective, boy, it just changes the foundation of it all. And is, like you're saying, like a parallel universe that, I kind of think it's only parallel because we as a human species, it's like there's a veil, there's a veil of perception. And once you see through that veil, as you all are clearly very much exploring and in relationship with, then we see that what is the human condition here is very much an illusion. It's contrived. It's not reality, and that that archetypal mind that is beyond a local sense of a psyche, is the source of our perception. And when we let ourselves go there in that beautiful, gentle, surrendering way, then we can orient ourselves together into bringing that expression, bringing that realization into this world. And and the beautiful thing is that the science is oriented, is congruent with that idea, and it's actually supporting it. And then by understanding that and applying it, we can not only with our consciousness and our hearts bring that into embodiment, but make the very important shift we need to make in our technologies and our social systems and all that, so that it can become a beautiful, faceted, integrated, spherical whole.
Well, thanks for that. It's it's kind of a confirmation for me. I've been all these years in my cave, and and then I realized, well, the work we've been doing, it's part of a much bigger picture, and it's all the same thing, It's not really isolated, and yeah, thanks for that. It's a big help.
I'm glad. I've been in a cave a long time myself. It's by putting this book out, I'm stepping out of the cave, and it's good, and it's the beauty of that is to be able to have these kinds of conversations and share in these good feelings that are present.
A lot of our work, or my work, is that I work with music. Well, we call it, it's the power song. It's the shaman song. I work with the drum, the voice, and when we work with the client, we get them to make a sound, any kind of sound, just a vibration, and we get their essence, you know. And with that sound, we can craft. And with the drum and we can journey. But it all has to do with sound vibration. That also seems to coincide with different geometries. It's the sound itself. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. For me, it's a passport for travel, and the one's power song is the signature in the invisible. Once I open it, it's like these whole worlds open. I just wondered how, you being a musician, how you experience that, like.
Yeah, sound. The way I understand the relationship of sound to this universal wholeness is that, as I say in the beginning of the book, there's the field of light, electromagnetism. It's the visible light we see, and the vast range of that we don't see, that permeates the entire cosmos. There's nowhere where there is not that happening. There's nowhere there is not light, even though it may look dark. That, like Berdhanya was saying, is only due to our angle of perception into that field. Yet there's light present everywhere, electromagnetism. And that within that universal field, and the dynamics of that field are radiation and gravitation. So that which outwardly expresses and dissolves or disseminates, and that which attracts or comes into a compression as it comes into form through gravitation. And that compressive aspect, both of those aspects actually, are attributes of the acoustic nature, the sound aspect. And so really because sound is pressure waves moving through a medium. And so in our experience is through the medium of air, and it's compressing and moving through, and it is what we experience and hear and can feel in our bodies. And that same dynamic is happening throughout the cosmos, pressure through a electromagnetic medium that creates all form. And so I say in the book that all form, all physical form in the universe is an acoustic phenomenon, and therefore it's the same thing as sound, and therefore all the geometry, the crystallization that happens in crystalline and metallic structures, and the organic form, and the water and the gases and everything are all acoustic attributes. And therefore, sound is fundamentally one of the most powerful forces we have as an ally in our journey here, because it directly impacts the form. You know, so when you're using a drum and using your voice, or having somebody use their voice and making a sound and expressing, it's literally activating that force that is already occurring in our bodies and in our consciousness. As a matter of fact, our body's nervous systems they've recently come to understand more. It's not just electrical impulses, but it's acoustic impulses that travel through. very mechanical pressure impulses that actually can permeate the whole body simultaneously rather than just following the electrical circuits that move through in the nervous system. It actually can permeate the entire body simultaneously. And so by using sound in our practices like you described, we're actually communicating simultaneously in the totality of our being at this very fundamental, essential level of the nature of the universe that creates the dynamic, as Berdhanya was saying, that which is a dynamic that comes into expression. Really fundamentally, it's an acoustic expression in a field of light. And it's, in some ways, it's as simple as that. And in that simplicity is a lot of joy, a lot of play, a lot of beauty, and the ability to heal and restore based on that understanding of the resonance and the harmonization that is the music. So yeah.
And also, if I can add to that sometimes, as you say, the sound may not be heard with the ears, and that they are the more powerful sound that the field understand is the resonance of our action. Because when we have an expression, that expression have a voice in the field, and that start making cohesiveness and form. That's why it's so important that at this time we cannot afford to be not expressive. We need to come forward with what passionate us, with what we're meant to do, even if it's a small thing. But the expression is the voice of our heart, that is expressing the love, the passion that the field need in order to complete certain dimension. So when we are too much in the cave or too much with our limiting belief systems, we are depriving the universe from our sound. That is through the voice or through the expression or through the connectability. But when we locate ourselves as a creator, then we have the obligation and responsibility to contribute with the song. So it can be sectorized for a healing session or something, but your whole life is a healing session. Your whole expression, whatever you choose to express, is the song that is forming a dimension, a scale, a quadrant, a constellation.
So you're saying it's not just about everybody going out and getting some gongs and crystal bowls, that everything we do has a resonance. It doesn't matter what it is.
That's right.
Yeah. You talk about that as well in your book, Marshall. You have a quote talking about joy being the outward flow of energy and love being the inward flow, and then the peace being that the peace and the stillness being the balancing point between these opposites. Can you give a little comment as well on your own, how you see your own expression, or how you see the natural urge to express coming from your own like research and the work you've done?
Yeah, so there's so many ways of expressing. And I wanted to acknowledge that beautiful poetry of your expression, Berdhanya, about that relationship to sound and resonance, and not only in the range that we can hear, and not only in the range that we can see. As a matter of fact, the vast nature of reality is beyond our hearing and seeing. And so there's so much more available to us than we give ourselves credit for, let's maybe say. and yeah, and so I think it's really, I love that statement about really participating. And you know, I have kept myself in obscurity up until this point in my life. And I have been on this journey a long time, and I've been involved in many great projects and worked with wonderful people for, you know, a couple of decades, most actively now, and a couple of decades before that, just trying to figure out what the heck am I doing and what is my expression. And it's very important now to bring our expression into the world and allow ourselves to share our voice and share our thoughts and share our hearts, and so that it can permeate, you know, literally permeate the physical reality, which is a very permeable reality. It may appear very solid and very hard to penetrate something, but that is the beauty of sound, is that it can actually penetrate much more so than light. And even though everything is made of light, so light is already penetrating all the matter, and sound, yet it can really penetrate. And again, sound isn't just what we make through our voices or our instruments. It's actually very much related to our field. And so, yeah, coming into the expression is really key for me. I thank you for, I love that you referenced that wonderful little quote that actually goes way back in my life to right after I had my frying pan over the head spiritual awakening in my first year of college. And it really came from first understanding Buckminster Fuller's statement that when he says, love is metaphysical gravity. So that the physics of gravity is the physical expression of that which unifies and attracts and binds together in wholeness. And love is our experience of that. And then I felt like, well, there's a complement to that, which is the radiant side of it, which is the joy. And so I said, joy is metaphysical levity. And ultimately then saw that relationship that you referenced in that little statement there. And the balance of the two is so key. And I have long been sort of an advocate in my worldview is that, you know, there's always room for more love in this world, but what's really, really lacking is more joy. And that, you know, without the joy, people can still be in love and go to war. And when the joy is present, you're not very likely to go to war. It's hard to get into a real aggressive fighting mode when you're in joy. And yet when you're in love, it still can happen. And so to me, there's an essential balance that is required in order to go through this transition. And that when they come together, that is the true nature of compassion. And so in terms of an expression, however we can express ourselves to bring that joy into the world, to bring an experience of joy to those who we are in relationship with in every moment. It's always here right now. And really, I feel it's the true nature of our being. Bliss, you know, bliss and ecstasy. When you get past all of your personality ideas and your ideas and thoughts of stuff that happened in life that makes you something other than that, when you transcend that into that non-local state of self-awareness, what's left really is this beautiful bliss and joy and love and compassion and peace and truth and honesty. And so, yeah, however, through music and dance, through science, through spiritual, through shamanic work, through business, any and every aspect of our expressions informed by that. It's very essential and simple, and yet that's where the profound capacity of it arises from. So
That's beautiful.
I will share that right now.
Matthew, would you like to comment?
Yeah, the joy, I can relate to that. The joy seems to be when we're following our passion. It's our natural state. And yeah, it's true that you can't, I guess you can't go to war if you have joy. Yeah.
Seems to be the case.
Yeah.
And I guess some people who go to war find joy in it, but maybe they don't have the love. Maybe that's what they're lacking. So could go either way, possibly.
Do we have time for one more question before we go to, so I have a question from the study group, and it's about creativity. It's about creativity.
Okay.
So the question is, where does the impulse to create come from? What is it that decides if something will be a planet, a person, or a cloud? Is it all pre-contained in the vector equilibrium of origin, from which everything keeps fractally reproducing itself? So the impulse toward creativity or the information. Oh, we lost Marshall.
They said they're having a storm.
Yeah, we'll give them a moment. Berdhanya, would you like to speak?
Well, creativity is a faculty of the heart. And creativity is the very nature of the creator. So since we are the creator, it comes from the creator and is constantly forming us. So it's not like where it comes from the attribute, divine attribute of creating, because we are the creator. So it's not, it's like a flow or a current that hits you when you are in your heart. Like otherwise you start constructing with your head, or you start analyzing how you should go about your life. You want to be creative, but creating is very much with the inspiration that you have every day. If you create from that place, then everything is fine and everything start to synchronize, and that synchronicity, you start getting the geometrical form of your life that you start inhabiting. So it's related with the power of alchemy. It comes from the alchemy, but it's also the electrical plasmic impulse of the heart to express divinity. And the expression of divinity is the play. You were early talking about joy, but joy without expressing is not possible. The only way to fulfill yourself is by following the passion, because the end is in the passion that you have, the creativity, the focus, the direction, the guidance, the stimulation, the development, the transitions, everything is in there. So you are actually wired and designed to be creator, be the creator. And when we respond to that, then we take responsibility, right? So we cannot say that love and joy, you can have love and you cannot have joy. No, that's not the case. If you have joy, you have love. If you have love, you have joy, because it's one single unit. If it's separated, okay, I can feel joyful because on earth I have certain things that are convenient for me or feels good to me, then that's a kind of joy. That's a kind of love. That's a kind of understanding. But the true nature have no difference. When you have the joy, you have the love, you have the peace, you have the integrity, you have the power, you have the creativity, you have everything that the divine source attributes are composed from. Is one single thing as well, in the sense of feeling it, knowing it, and creating it, expressing it. There's only one thing divided in three powers: the power of wisdom, the power of love, the power of creativity. But it comes from one single thing. Accordingly to what you're built, then you will have a preference of have more wisdom or more love or more creativity. But it's all sealed in one single sphere. We are in a sphere. So to try to discern that joy is different than love, or love is different than creativity, no, it's just one single unit. You have it or you don't. That's it. There's no division and from the source to when it comes to where creativity come from, or what love come from, or joy. It's all one single unit. You got it or you don't.
You're back, Marshall.
I'm back. Yeah, power dropped for just a moment again.
Okay.
But it came back on, and it took a little while for the internet to reconnect.
It's okay. I'd like to give the opportunity to a few people in our study group to talk about the impact of the book on.
I would love that.
Can we start with Rajem? Rajem, are you in the line? Can you open your camera? Maybe I'll do it for you.
There she is.
Sorry, I'm being slow.
That's okay.
It's so lovely to meet you, Marshall.
Thank you.
And it's just beautiful to sit back and hear the conversation among all of you tonight. What this book has meant for me is that it really opened up a whole new way for me to understand the teachings, the spiritual teachings that I've been studying with Berdhanya, with Matthew, with this community for several decades. And it really blew me away how the sciences that you've laid out support and align all the invisible structures that we've been studying through the more mystic sciences, if you could put it that way. And what started to happen to me is now every morning in my my meditations is I see these structures, and it's I mean they hit me more in my meditations, but it's like I've started to see how all these building blocks appear just everywhere in places that I would never have seen before. And I'm also finding that I'm aware of more links between just different concepts, different ideas than I had before. So And I mean, I'm so grateful for Oktok because to delve into this book without his guidance, to understand it and to kind of get my brain up to speed on sciences that I studied decades ago would have been an unsurmountable task. But Marshall, I just really want to thank you for sharing all of your collective, probably lifetime collection of your passion. It's been really beautiful to have that intersect with our passion here. So thank you.
Oh, my great pleasure. Thank you for reflecting that. And, you know, for me, it's very, very much the same in that I'm actually not really that technical a person. It may not look that way to some people in my book, but compared to the people I work with, you know, who are very technical scientists, engineers, I'm not as much. I'm more on the artist side than I am on the scientist side, ultimately. So my quest has been to be able to convey what I understand of the science that all fits in beautifully with the what we might call the more artistic side of the geometry and the patterns, you know, that we can see without having to intellectually understand and get something from it. And like you're saying, to be able to see these patterns in meditation more so, and the links. And for me, that's always been my quest, is to be able to take my perception of this interlinked wholeness and communicate it in a way that has always been the way I can make sense of it, and hopefully that others can gain from that as well. So I appreciate that's your experience, and it means a lot to me to hear that. Thank you.
Aaron, are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Can you share your experience with the book?
Oh, in the beginning it was somewhat difficult to get in, but once it's done, it's enriching. It brings a new how would I say that? We study it, and now it's after we all went through each chapter, it's like everything adds together, and then it becomes complete, and then the reflection continues. Where it brought me is that maybe because it's in my field, like, is it aging or getting old? Is it a kind of way, the Fibonacci number, or the phi proportion between each of the center and the vortexes? Does it get displaced? And by the meditation, and the breathing, we're just bringing it back in a kind of health in that. And then after that, it brought me to the, maybe time it doesn't exist. Aging is not there. It's more what you talk in your book, Marshall, is the kind of entropy. It's all the body. We lose energy to everything that is around us. We gain energy, so that a constant change. So we are in contact with everything around. And then the next question that comes is, like Berdhanya told, is, okay, what is my relationship to essence? What is my relationship to the source? And it's not clear, but it's more like, okay, it's your enrichment. It's like enrichment of the source by what I'm receiving, what I'm giving, which seems to be the what I received from the book, and also all the teaching from Berdhanya, Matthew, and all the teaching from everybody in the group too. It's just that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's that very much, you know, the essence of our experience as human beings is very much tied into the kind of the notion of time and evolution and aging, and yet that's just a relative experience. And so I love hearing that that's a reflection of your experience by understanding some of the science and the patterns, and then seeing that there's something even more essential, which I know that you all explore in our teaching. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
Talk.
Yeah, Marshall, your book is fantastic, man.
Thank you.
Actually, let me animate myself a little better. Your book is fantastic, Marshall. No, really it is.
Thank you.
You know, I've always been like scientifically oriented, and the subject material clicked with me quite easily, which was great. But I really want to highlight a particular aspect that, you know, us only like a single author could really like pull off properly. You know, if you go out there on the internet, and you try to like research sacred geometry or finery or, you know, holographic nature or fractals, you know, you kind of get like a disjointed mess of information, and it's really something quite special when you have a singular point where the data is amalgamated, but most importantly, you have the consciousness, that being you in this case, being able to actually draw the links between the separate subjects and go, right, this is connected to here, and this is connected to here, and this ties into this, and we could see this detail here, and it's like, right, got it. So dude, spot on. Like, your book is
awesome. Aktak, thank you so much. I appreciate that reflection. And you know, like I was saying, that has been part of my quest, is to be able to show the integrated wholeness. And what really I know is ultimately a very simple model. It can be challenging at first to get through all the parts and start to see what the parts are in their own unique aspect of that wholeness, that like the perspectives that we're talking about, to see that one thing. And then when we see that all together as one thing, then they all, you know, every one of those holographic, fractal, the phi, the harmonic nature of music, the physics, they're all just one thing. Consciousness, it's all just one thing, really. And in that is a tremendous simplicity. And it's when we orient ourselves to seeing it as all as one thing, it starts to make sense then, because until we do, and like you were saying, Aktak, it's like these separate strands that you go look here and you look there, and then, but you don't see how they relate. But when you see that as all one thing, it actually then makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, something else that you find on the internet too is people are trying to like pick one aspect of it and like you know, try to make like a final solution out of it, and it's like you guys are like losing the exploration part of it, right? And you're losing, but you know, the perspectives are good, right? Like, you want to take the physics approach or the finery approach, or, you know, just sacred geometry approach, and once you sort of finally get that clue, you know, you finally like, you find a perspective that sort of, oh, a light bulb goes on for a moment, then suddenly all those other perspectives that you may have missed or misunderstood start to become way more clear, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can say that as well from my perspective. Like, I had a general understanding of some of the theories of unified physics, but then when we really delved into it and explored it in a disciplined way, it forced me to look at things that maybe I didn't completely understand. And as Berdhanya was saying, it's like when you focus on something, it gets bigger in your own reality. So it was like entering that dimension which we're in all the time in one way, but then it's like entering it from, I don't know, like the understanding of just that dimension, and just seeing it everywhere. Like, I was facilitating a ceremony last week, and seeing that there more strongly than before, and in working with Ayurveda as well, Ayurveda, you know, is based in the elements. So I don't know, it feels like it changed my relationship with space. Like the awareness that you know, it's things that masters have always said, that like everything is in the now, but I don't know, for some reason the imprint really stayed with me, and I think the impression here to stay. Yeah, so thank you.
Wonderful. As I was saying towards the beginning, you know, I really feel it's important that our minds have the opportunity to understand this information, because it's then that the mind can relax. And, you know, by having that logical relationship to what we already are very much feeling and our hearts know, and, you know, is very much the orientation of the spiritual mystic aspect. Oftentimes the mind is still wondering, you know, is this true? Is this real? What do I do now? You know, or how can I get somewhere, or whatever it might be? All these questions that can start to relax when there's a framework that the mind can settle into, saying, yeah, I get it now. Okay. And then we can really, you know, go. And it sounds like, you know, some of your experience in ceremony is, like you said, your relationship to space. Well, there's an orientation that allows your mind to actually go there also, you know, and have a place, and then let go, because that relaxation is present, and it's so important. So thank you for that reflection too.
Well, I would like to say, Marcia, that as a holder of this community, and my choice of bringing this book into the studies of the structure of belonging, I noticed in the community a great leap of understanding their nature, and as you say, that they are able more to relax and realize a point that they were needed to understand. So each person has kind of a different maturity point that this book, those research have brought up, is that each person have the aha point and the integration of some teachings, that they were ready to be integrated, but they were needing that link to be integrated. So without that information, whatever they were processing to be part of their cosmetry, were not able, without your book, information that you brought to each of us is very rich. It's very for the mind bending, the time, the space, the conception of where we are. So I really feel grateful that you have saved me a couple months of work.
Good. I'm glad it's paying off.
On time, with our
my efforts are paying off. That's great to hear.
And I thank also the community for responding to this challenge, because as through the years we have been just being trained and heavy duty mysticism and shamanism and subtleness and you know, all the subtle science, and then I ask, okay, now you need to look into physics, and they go, oh my God.
Yeah, how scary that is.
How scary it is. So thanks God we have Oktalk who facilitate a beautiful way, and thank you, Oktalk.
Yeah, not scared from your role. And when you said that, I was like, really? We're going to check out physics? Finally.
Oktalk, by the way, I've been seeing this double pyramid above your head as you've been speaking.
Yeah, it's a star tetrahedron that I just put together
Oh,
with barbecue
okay.
skewers.
So,
Yeah,
so it's really there.
Well, I've got that and others in my meditation room downstairs, but my son liked that one in particular, so we brought it upstairs.
Very
That's
good.
great. Well, I
Anyway,
thank
I
you.
just wanna thank you for all your work. Is very much of great contribution to this community, and I look forward for further interactions and maturity in different topics and expanding the voice of different members that I'm sure they have something enlightened to say. Thank you, Briya, again for putting this together, Matthew and Oktok and all of you for tonight.
Well, Berdhanya, thank you for taking the time to look into my book and then seeing its relevance in your community. I'm curious, how did it come across your radar to begin with? Do you recall?
Probably her crush on Nassim Haramein.
Oh, yeah. Through those
You might have
channels,
been talking about it.
emails, and yeah, okay, yeah, that would
I start to introducing some of the knowledge and researching for some videos of physics that they could be enriching the certain topic I was teaching. So
yeah,
I came
great.
across,
You had it right in July, like you had it probably the same month that it was.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right away. Well, it just really means so much to me to hear how you all have embraced what I have to offer into your studies, and Berdhanya, that you felt it was of importance to your community, and to hear how it is contributing to a growth and an evolution in ways that are very meaningful, and for me it just really means everything to hear that, and it's so fulfilling and rewarding, and I love being in this conversation with you all, and would be happy to do so anytime, and appreciate so much all you're doing to bring this beautiful new dream into this world, which we're doing together. And Briya, thank you so much for putting out that nice little image of the book on your lap with study group. I'm like, really, a study group? Wow, I want to talk with that group of people. That's my kin.
Yeah, it's been our honor, man.
Yeah, well, mine as well. Mine as well. Thank you.
Is there room for like a quick little question? Can I throw you a
Yes,
question?
of course.
I'm kind of curious. Is there any Mandelbrot and complex numbers? Is there any reason you didn't touch on any of that in your book?
I saw that question come in. I was like, yeah, there's somebody who's really paying attention. Well, so I've given that some thought based on Briya sending me that question. And in terms of the Mandelbrot fractals, that kind of visual expression of the mathematics that we associate with fractals, and has been very informative of at least imprinting an idea of what fractals are for people, so my orientation was to, first of all, to not get technical about it. And so to reference the mathematics are there, and that Benoit Mandelbrot conceived of and generated this mathematical model. He did so to actually answer a question about what's happening in nature when you see mountainscapes and coastlines and plant growth and clouds and everything. And my simple definition of fractal in the book is this same pattern repeats at all scales. It's as simple as that. And I wanted people to be orienting that concept towards the experience and perception of nature and what's happening in nature. And so I pretty much wholly went in that direction and not in the mathematical at least in terms of the study of that or the inquiry of that, I really wanted to be oriented towards the expression of that in nature. So I went more fully in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
And
I get it from that perspective.
uh-huh,
But
yeah.
I am taking this group in the direction of complex numbers and Mandelbrot in the next 2 weeks. So.
Oh, great. Well, I could learn from you then, because complex numbers, the complex imaginary plane, I honestly don't understand them very well, because like I said, I'm not that technical. And so what I do understand is that it's foundational to an aspect of understanding the nature of information in the universe. And in my book, it's like energy, matter, and information are all one thing. And I personally didn't understand that aspect enough to try to incorporate it and do it justice appropriately. And one of the books I mentioned a few times is called The Cosmic Hologram by Jude Curvin. And she is a physics background and a mystical background, by the way. Very interesting, like she says, walking in both worlds. And she's a wonderful cosmologist, and I think would be a great person for you all to have a conversation with. And she does talk about that in The Cosmic Hologram. And when I read that book, I was like, finally, somebody put out a book that really is saying and it's a really it's comprehensively referencing scientific research and papers throughout her whole book. So it's very much grounded in that kind of sourcing. And
Yeah, man.
she talks about that in there. So that's a good one to get some of that information from.
For me personally, like Mandelbrot and the set and those fractals are really like the final frontier of sacred geometry. So I hope the group appreciates them as much as I do by the end, by 2 weeks from now. We'll see. It is a bit technical. It is, but I believe in them. So
yeah, well, and what she says, and that's kind of the rounded out, is that it's that aspect of these complex and imaginary numbers and all that is the informational aspect underlying what then comes into the other expressions.
The form, yeah,
exactly.
And just maybe I'll throw one thing more in there. The complex number imaginary plane, just to quote some things from your book, you can think of that realm as the multidimensional or unmanifest realm.
Yeah.
Like the unmanifest part of the VE, for example.
Oh, okay, good.
Right
Perfect.
on.
Perfect. Love it.
Great. Well, is there any other closing comments before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you so much again, Marshall, for being with us. We're really honored to have you here. It's like a miracle. And if anyone wants to get a hold of you, I would guess the best way would be through your website, cosmometry.
Sure. You can share my email address with anybody in your group as you wish. That's fine.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Berdhanya and Matthew are both reachable at berdhanya.com, as you know. They have an amazing program for people interested in learning more about modern mysticism called Practical Awakening, as well as Berdhanya is soon launching a new school program platform called Evolution.
Oh,
I don't know anything else about, but it's coming, so we're really excited.
Right. I just ordered one of your PDFs today, and I'm looking forward to going into it more fully. Been a very busy time. We didn't talk about the Thrive movie, and we could do that another time, but it's exciting. Good things are happening. There's some
what are you working on? How's
fabulous that going? Yeah, well, there are some I think you're familiar with Thrive 1, and since that came out, there have been over 1,000 people contacted Foster and Kimberly Gamble saying they have innovations in all sorts of different fields. And so over these years, they've vetted it down to some of the most essential and actual ones. And all of them are based on everything we're talking about here. It's resonance, vibration frequency coming into harmonic relationship, whether it's energy generating technology or healing technologies or consciousness shifting, or even there are aspects of the film that will go into the plant medicine shaman journey aspect of it, really the pure consciousness aspect of it, and it's all one and the same thing. And so we're going to be, I have the dream job of working with Foster and a team of computer graphic artists, 3D artists, to be able to visually portray the things that are in the book, the geometry and dynamics of the unified field, and that really the unified field is sort of the star of the movie, and everything else is in reference to that, relationship to that. And so it's just very exciting to be putting this picture together now for that offering into the world. So
that's beautiful. We'll look forward to seeing that. When is it coming out?
Aiming towards spring of next year.
Cool.
And we're in the thick of it now. So yeah, so I wanted to do some more reading of some of your books, Berdhanya, and so just finally today I was like, well, I'm going to get one of these PDFs, and it didn't come in yet, but I look forward to reading it very much. And okay, you'll get there.
Yeah, you're getting a little. I made that book with the intent to have an overview of a great mandala of life. So you have a little bit of resume on that. Hopefully will be understandable.
I look forward to taking it in, and thank you for all you're bringing into our world, all of you, and thank you for having me here tonight. It's been an honor for me as well.